Welcome back to Vertical Thoughts. Thank you for joining us today for episode 7. It is me, your host with the most, Liam Wynn. Today, I've got a very special guest with me. You may know him from his increasingly popular Instagram videos and his Instagram handle at Sleep, Eat, Climb, Repeat. Did I get that right? Sleep,
You did,
Eat,
yep.
Climb, Repeat. You know, I find myself wanting to go eat, sleep, climb, repeat, and then like sleep, climb, eat, repeat. I trip myself up. But Jeremy, go ahead and introduce yourself, my friend.
So hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm 43 years old. I started climbing about 2 years ago when I was 41, and I started the Instagram because I didn't see anybody who looked like me or my age or my weight, and so I figured, why not be that guy for somebody else?
That's really cool. I like that. So dig into that a little bit for me. You were 41 years old. You were
Yep.
involved in some kind of an accident, right?
Yep. So I used to have a Vespa, and the key here is used to. I was out riding around one night for fun, and according to the police report anyway, I ran through a red light, which I find highly suspicious because I was extremely cautious riding this thing. But I got hit by a car. I broke 4 ribs. I had a subarachnoidal hemorrhage and concussion. So I was in the hospital for a week, and then I was in inpatient rehab for another week. And then when I got out, I really suffered with the ribs. If you've never had a broken rib, one of the things that makes a rib feel better, or at least for me did, I like just to lean into it. And so I spent a lot of time leaning into it, and then of course all my muscles on my right side where I had the broken ribs tightened up, so I had to take muscle relaxers so that I could even not be in pain. And eventually, and at the time I was pretty heavy. I think I was, like 350, 340.
Okay.
And I decided that I wanted to get into shape, and I wanted to exercise. I thought maybe it would help me recover as well. So, I started counting calories, started working on my diet, and then I started to walk because that's really the only thing I could do. And eventually, at the time, I worked for an online outdoor developer, and I heard some guys talking about Austin Bouldering Project, and I'd always been interested in climbing, but I really didn't understand ropes, and it just all seemed mystical to me. And
Yeah.
it still kind of seems a little mystical to me, and I sport climb. But so I was like, let's go try it. And I had a buddy of mine that I'd worked with before who had done parkour for 6 years, and I knew he had kind of gotten out of it. And I'm like, hey man, you want to go try climbing? And he said, yep. And we went, and that was 2.5 years ago, and we climbed 3 times a week still together. So we both fell in love with it. And,
So the beginning of the end right there, right?
yeah, the addiction was stuck.
It's rough. I remember my first few times. I was absolutely hooked, and my body. I mean, it's the opposite of the song, right? My body was telling me no. My body was saying, "Stop doing this. You're hurting yourself." But my mind was telling me yes. In this case,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
that's a great story, and it's to some of us we kind of stumble upon rock climbing. To others, it's an interest maybe in media that brings us to rock climbing. But to you, it kind of seems like you found climbing at the perfect time in your life, and that's a really beautiful story. I mean, climbing is a very beautiful thing for most people, and I know for me it's very therapeutic, and I think a lot of my life would be not only much more difficult, but probably just not physically possible without rock climbing, and what it has done for me, and I'm sure it's the same for you. And so one question that I have is, at what point, I went back, I did the research. Your first post on your current Instagram handle, at least, was back in 2017. What was your thought process going into that and thinking, I'm going to share that? I know you talked about it a little bit already, but dive into that, being like, I'm going to share what I do with the world, with everyone else. What kind of motivated you to get there?
So, and one of the things I didn't really talk about is when I was riding the Vespa. I don't know if you ever heard of like moto vlogging. It's a big thing with motorcyclists, and so I'd put GoPros all over the thing, and I was shooting these videos, and there's microphones you can put in your helmet, and then so I was recording, I was talking as I was riding, and I would take those videos. It basically became my second job. I was editing these videos, I was shooting them, and even after I found climbing, I just had this like desire to create things. I studied theater in college, even though I'm a developer, so I've always been interested in creating and sharing. I think the great thing about social media is that you can take a slice of your life and share it with everybody. And that's what I just wanted to do. And then I got self-conscious about it. And then I was like, you know what? There's somebody out there. I know there's a guy out there or a woman out there who's in their 40s, who goes to the climbing gym and sees, everybody in their 20s who's super fit and goes, or looks at the climbing media out there and sees, awesome people like, Daniel Woods or Alex Puccio, sending V15 and goes, I struggle at a gym V2.
Right.
And so I'm like, why don't I share? I struggle with gym V2s, and so I'm like, why not share that, with the world? And I'm sure, maybe a few people will, turn their nose up at it. But if one person looks at it and is excited, then great.
Yeah, and that's relating to other people is really what content creation is all about. And
sure.
It's cool that you got kind of got your start in content creation. I relate to that very seriously. I've just always been doing, video, audio, pictures, whatever I could just to make something, you know what I mean? Yep. And I like the way you phrased it, just, share a little slice of your life with everyone. Yep. And it's blossomed quite successfully, I'd say, for your Instagram. It's been very cool, to be watching over the last few years or so, to watch it kind of blossom into what it is. And just, how has that been for you? You know what I mean? I've seen some of your videos since you made that first post back in 2017. Some of your videos now have as much as 35,000 views. And what does that mean to you to have that kind of support on the online community?
I'm not going to lie. It's crazy. I still think it's crazy. But I also think it's amazing. Obviously, I've touched a chord in the community. I get a lot of support. A few detractors, but it's the internet. Right. It's great. It's amazing. Still, like I said, still very surprising to me.
Is it something you like? Is it something you have to constantly remind yourself of, or is it something that kind of eggs you in the back of the head at all times? Like, hey, people are watching, people are here.
A little bit, more in the sense that I'm very sarcastic, and I have to remind myself that does not come across on the internet well.
Yeah.
And then you just get into once you get so many people or a certain amount of people looking at what you're doing, you have to remember that what you say and what you do has consequences, as opposed to if you have, 35 of your friends following you, it's less of an issue. But yeah, I definitely think more about it now, and I have a few pro climbers that follow me, and I got really self-conscious after I saw them follow me. I'm like, is what I'm doing cool enough? Or, you know what I mean?
That's scary. Yeah, that's scary. I mean, people, these climbers in the community that have been crushing for forever, and it's weird. We have a sport, climbing, that is, professional climbers are really so accessible. I mean, just because the sport is still pretty underdeveloped and underexposed, in my opinion.
For sure.
Professional climbers are not Hollywood actors, you know what I mean? Like, they're accessible, they're out there, they're just normal people. And for the most part, if you shoot them a DM, they'll probably respond.
For sure. Yeah.
However, still, I am too afraid to shoot any of them DMs just because, who they are and just the great figures that they are. But it's awesome to see that sense of community and to see the community rising up in support of your content. And, just keep up the good work. It's really cool to see what you've been doing so far and that everyone's resonating with it. I mean, you throw everything at the wall and you see what sticks. And for you, it stuck right away, which is awesome.
Yeah. Like I was saying, I just got lucky in the sense that I had this idea of, I'm going to share what it's like to be a normal person climbing. A normal person. I'm not talking about like a normal climber person.
Right.
And it just so happened, I think it just so happens that it happened at a time when, I don't know about at your gym, but I look around at my gym and the demographics changing. It is a little bit of an older crowd. It is a little bit of not the normal body type of a climber crowd. I mean, they're still there, don't get me wrong.
Absolutely, yeah.
But and especially with free solo and down wall, I think people, especially free solo, people are seeing that and like, hey, I want to go climbing. And bouldering isn't as, like, same thing for me. Bouldering is not as intimidating as going rope climbing.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Although I think people feel more comfortable, like, on the auto belay. I see when I go to one of our gyms, we have auto belay. They have a wall, and I feel like when you see people coming in rent shoes, they're more apt to go do autoplay than they are to do go bouldering. But but Austin Bowling Project is, you go there in an evening, it's packed, and a lot of people are there, have rental shoes on. So
yeah, and that's cool to see. And we actually, many of the podcast episodes leading up to this point have been about that specifically. Though we phrased it the non-climbing climber, the climber who's not, necessarily even a huge part of the community. Maybe they don't consume a lot of climbing media. You start throwing professional climber names at them, they have no idea who you're talking about, and frankly, they don't care. But
sure,
they're there to climb. And that's awesome. Yep. It's something that, like, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it just didn't exist. I mean, you go to the climbing gym and it was just climbers through and through.
I'm sure, yeah.
And it's really cool to see kind of that upbringing of the general populace giving it a shot. And a lot of people, yourself included, just give it a shot and then all of a sudden they're hooked. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, for sure.
Because of what it is, just by nature of the personal victories that you get, and the way it changes your body and your balance and your strength, and really positive thing for a lot of people. So I'm very in support of that. We were talking about some kind of climbing elitists, that are out there who maybe frown on the busy gyms, but
oh yeah, and I was gonna say, you get I've seen everything. Like, I have friends who climb hard, rope routes, like hard for me, like 512s indoors, maybe even harder. Have zero interest in ever going outside.
Oh yeah.
And then there's the people who, you see their Instagram accounts and say, this is really strange, I never post videos of gym climbs, because they're implying that gym climbing is not real climbing.
Yeah.
And so, but I think there's a whole group, I know there's a whole generation of climbers now that are gym climbers. I'm one of them. I go outside now, but there's a whole group of people who they're never going to go outside. They're not interested in it, but they love climbing. And to me, they're just as much climbers as, any climber in the world.
Absolutely agree. Yeah. And it's intimidating. It's a big mountain to overcome to get into outdoor climbing. You got to get the gear, you got to know the spots, you got to get the guidebooks, and the biggest thing, you got to have climbing partners you trust to go outdoors. Yeah. Can't really go alone. You can, but it's scary. No. You're probably gonna hurt yourself if you go alone. But
yeah, the area I really like to boulder in, the cell service is shoddy, and I'm not gonna fall. I've already broken an ankle bouldering, so I'm not gonna fall and break an ankle outside and be stuck there. Eventually someone will come along, but
yeah,
I don't want to be stuck there. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna bring people along with me. So.
Yeah, and it's difficult to get into, but I like the at least the dynamic of gym climbing. Truly in my heart, I'm a gym climber. I love outdoor climbing. I love the time spent outdoors with friends, hanging out. You know what I mean? Talking, taking pictures, the whole thing. I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. However, we talked about this, I think, in the last episode. If I had to give up one, I'd give up outdoor. I'd climb indoors for the rest of my life if I had to pick one. Just where I feel the most comfortable. It's where it's where I have the most fun with climbing itself. Outdoors challenges me more, obviously, and I get maybe more personal victory by sending a climb outdoors than I do by sending a climb in the gym. But
yeah, for sure.
There's something to be said about just going into the gym and there's a fresh new set on the wall, and just the same wall you saw yesterday, but there's these new climbs on there and they're challenging in new ways. And they show the setters' personalities, and there's just really something to be said about gym climbing. I love it. I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, if you said to me tomorrow, hey Jeremy, you have to pick one of the two, I would also pick gym climbing. I haven't spent a lot of time climbing outdoors, so I have this huge group of friends that have been climbing at the same gym at the same day and at the same time for 2.5 years. I know the crew. I feel there's 3 feet of mat on the ground everywhere.
Yeah.
So you're not going to fall and hit a rock or something.
Pretty comforting, yeah.
Yeah. I'm still not going to dyno, but it's okay.
That's all right. I think, and the funny thing is about that is I think you and I think we're part of the niche group still.
That don't dyno?
Oh, I dyno. I love dynos. Oh, yeah. Okay. No, but people that would pick indoor over outdoor climbing. I think our group is growing, but I think most climbers are going to look at that and be like, dude, you're nuts. You're out of your mind. You know what you're missing.
Oh, yeah.
We do know what we're missing.
Yeah, but I also 100% agree with you. I feel like sending something outside has more of achievement than sending something indoors, because I can say, hey, I've climbed X at Waco. Have you climbed X at Waco? Yes. Okay. Now we have something in common.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I could say, okay, I mean, the way at my gym at Awesome Bowling Project, everything's graded in this 3-grade range by hold color. Mm-hmm. Oh, did you climb that purple problem that was on that wall 6 months ago? What are you talking about? I have no idea.
Yeah, diluted.
So, yeah. But like you said, every 2 or 3 days, I get another fix. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Never stops changing. Never ceases. Nope. For me to improve, really. I mean, the more you climb at a gym, you know, the more maybe setters will get feedback from the local climbers. And I don't know if this is the same for you, but the average climber at my gym is getting so strong. I mean,
oh, yeah, it's crazy.
I don't know what's happening. Like the average climber a while back, you know, again, maybe just like a year ago even, was just like, you know, V2, V3, you know, maybe projecting 4 and 5. I feel like the average climber at my gym is climbing like V6, and I'm getting scared.
Yeah.
It's freaking me out, but it's super cool to see. I mean, I love to see the community growing and getting stronger together. That's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I love the climbing community. Everybody, I mean, obviously I don't look, you know, I'm heavier than everybody else. I get so much support from people at the gym, and it's not because I have a popular Instagram account. But these people they're excited that I'm trying it, and then I think other people are astonished that I'm doing what I'm doing.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, I know high level climbing is a power to weight ratio thing, or even mid level climbing, but technique will save you in a lot of places, and just being strong sometimes helps out. So
absolutely, yeah. And the way we said it on the show a couple episodes back, it was you got to make 100% either way. If you can only give 40% strength, you got to give 60% technique, but you can make up the difference. You know what I mean? And that's a really cool thing to see. And we were talking about the difference between Tommy Caldwell and Kevin Jorgensen on the Dawn Wall, and how Kevin still to this day is the only person to do that climb with the dyno. And that's, you know, his strength made up the difference with Tommy Caldwell's flawless technique.
So did Andre do the down climb too?
Andre did the down climb. Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty
cool.
It's
kind of funny. I was actually just listening to that episode on the way home. So right before this, I was watching the Dawn Wall again. It's my new go-to movie.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Such a good movie. I watched it again shortly before doing that podcast, and I wanted to do the podcast at 11:45 at night, right after I finished the movie. I was like, dude, I got so much to say right now. It's such a good movie.
So it's kind of weird to me. I don't want to. I know you guys did a podcast of it, but it's people I know who aren't climbers love free solo. I love Dawn Wall. I feel like Tommy, kind of like what you guys were saying in the podcast, Tommy's a climber's climber. Alex is an amazing athlete. He's just hard to relate to, especially in that movie. I mean, like you guys mentioned in that podcast, you see him in other interviews, he's a little bit more relatable.
Yeah.
But Tommy's Caldwell story is also, I think, more interesting to me as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, you said it yourself, he's the climber's climber. He's the complete package in terms of rock climbing. But yeah, and actually, on the subject of the Dawn Wall, we're going to take a little break here, a little break in the norm, and I'm going to hit you with a couple climbing trivia questions. All right. We're gonna test some knowledge. You may absolutely cruise through this, and that's totally okay.
Okay.
But starting with the Dawn Wall, the first climbing trivia question of today: how many pitches are on the Dawn Wall? And I'm going to give you a couple choices. You may know the answer already.
32.
Damn it.
I was literally doing it. I was literally just watching it. So
when you said that, I was like, oh man. Well, he's not gonna guess that one wrong. 32 pitches. You got it absolutely right. There are 32 pitches. Tommy Caldwell and Kevin Jorgensen completed it in a total of 19 days. The second ascent was completed by Adam Ondra in October of 2015, and it was done in 8 days. Pretty impressive stuff. I mean, 32 pitches. It would take me 32 years, I think.
Pretty much. I've never multi-pitched, so.
Yeah, it's intense stuff. And then we'll move on to the second question. This one has nothing to do with the Dawn Wall. So I'll preface this though with a question for you. Do you follow competitive climbing pretty closely?
Yeah, fairly closely. Yep.
A little bit, okay. The question is, and it's multiple choice, so I'll give you some names, but who placed first in men's at the international climbing event Adidas Rockstars in 2018? Do you know the answer already, or do you want some names?
Alex Migas.
That's not it.
Oh, no?
Let me give you a few options, and I'll let you pick one. Option A, John Wong Chon.
Okay.
Option B, Nathaniel Coleman. Option C, Yernay Kruder. And option D, Adam Andra, hashtag of course, hashtag Andra Nation 2019, hashtag silence.
That's a lot of hashtags for Adam Andra. I'm going to go with John Wong Chong.
So close. Unfortunately, John Wong Chong placed second at the Adidas Rockstars International Climbing event to Yernay Kruder, who placed first. Yep.
I just remember it was the first time that he had won, right? Like
it was
so close several times.
Yeah.
That much I remembered. I just couldn't remember who it was.
Yeah, you were sniffing it out. You were on the right track. And I mean, John Wong Chong, I mean, he's a phenomenal climber, right? Absolutely don't take anything away from him for getting second place, because the finals in that event is a speed bouldering competition. Yeah. So, you know, who's to say who the better climber is? I think they're both the better climber, but it was not, unfortunately, Adam Andra, for those of you who, you know, put all those hashtags on your photos. But he also shortly after that, later on in 2018, he placed first in bouldering at the IFSC Climbing Championships. So super cool for him. Super big year for him. But that's it for climbing trivia. You crushed the first one, and then you sussed out the second one.
I got too cocky, and I thought I knew it, but
I had to pick two questions that had nothing to do with one another.
Yeah, I do watch a lot of bouldering competition. Although it's a little weird now that all the USA climbing stuff is on ESPN.
Crazy, right? Really interesting change for me as well. I mean,
it's cool, and I think it seems like a lot of people were really excited about it. I'm still apprehensive about it, but you know, the way that the sport's changing.
It is, yeah. It's evolving, and it's getting to the main stage, and it'll probably just continue to go up that ramp. You know,
I'm sure, yeah.
Especially with being in the Olympics and all that stuff.
We're gonna have to build more climbing gyms.
Oh no.
I know.
More things for me to send. More things for me to dyno. How about that?
Exactly. Yeah. I don't.
Yeah, I'll do the dynos, and then
you can do all the dynos. Roll in. They're all yours.
There you go. Okay, so let's move right back into it here. So a couple questions for you. In your goals for 2019 post on Instagram, you mentioned a custom training plan from Power Company Climbing.
Yep.
How have you found that training plan has changed the way you approach just a generic session at the rock climbing gym?
Oof. Yeah, honestly, that has been the hardest adjustment I've had to deal with so far this year. Like many people, I used to go to the gym and climb with my buddies and hang out and talk, and it was a good way to relax after work. And, you know, I tried hard, and I tried stuff that was harder, but no real systematic approach to how I was trying to tackle things. And then to have a plan where, 2 sessions a week, I had to do these drills. And in a busy climbing gym, a lot of those drills, doing those workouts would probably take me an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Oh yeah.
Just waiting for problems and whatnot. And so it was a big, and then of course my buddies don't want to hang around and hover drills or sloth drills or whatever.
Yeah.
They want to go to the new set, just like we were talking about, where the new set really isn't the greatest place to do drills at, especially because everybody's there. It's much different. And then it's one of those things. What do they say in Philadelphia? Trust the process. Basketball reference. I'm not really into sports ball, but I just had to trust the process, and then once you see the results, it changes your attitude towards it. I still am not a huge fan. I'd rather go to the gym and just climb and for fun, but I still give myself 1 or 2 sessions a week to climb for fun. And then the other days, I do the drills and do the workouts, and it's definitely I thought I was getting better, and then I start to see people, comment on my videos that they could tell my footwork was getting better, and then I'm getting stronger. So I'm like, it must be working. So
yeah, you've got a couple thousand auditors every day to tell you
for sure
if how you're feeling is accurate, which is it's cool. It's cool that we can as an audience, as fans, we can see the progression and the change, and honestly, it speaks to training in general. And it speaks to the plan that Power Company has put aside for you, and that's cool. That they have that individualized training regimen, because it's different for everyone. It really is. There are generic climbing workouts that I think would work for everyone, but a lot of them you'll find are catered towards getting real strong real quick. And they're like, hey, get on the smallest, tiniest part of the hangboard, put the least amount of fingers you can on there, and then just hang for as long as you can. Hope you don't break something.
Yeah.
And I am notoriously so bad at training. I mean, I just project and dyno. Yeah. That's all I project until I'm pumped, and then I just jump around the walls like a crazy person. And
I definitely come with those people as well.
Yeah, and it's nothing if not enjoyable.
For sure. I kind of mentioned it before, but I'd broken my ankle climbing, and so I had to take, I don't know if it was 6 or 9 weeks off. So, because I'd gone to one of the urgent care places. They had taken an X-ray, and they told me it wasn't broken, just to go home and rest. It was just a bad sprain. And if you look on the internet, they say a bad sprain can last like 5 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And so right around week 6.5, I'm like, this isn't getting any better. So I went to an orthopedist, and he said, no, I had broken a piece of the bone off, and it was stuck in the joint. I need to have surgery immediately, or as soon as possible. So then I had surgery, and then of course after that they don't want you climbing for 5 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So when I came back, and of course at that point, like I broke my ankle falling off of a bouldering problem, and it hurt, and so you're scared to fall 2 feet. So I'm climbing these super like V0, VB, whatever the lowest grade at the gym is, just gripped. And so I decided to take the time and just to kind of work on my footwork at that point, or my technique in general at that point. But then, once I started working with the Power Company, that was phase 1 of my plan, was a lot of technique and footwork stuff.
Yeah, and it really makes you focus. It's crazy. You're taking my last like 5 podcast episodes, and you're just knocking the topics out one by one. I just got to start having you on the show every week, and we'll just cover it all. With Brooke, my girlfriend, she sprained her ankle very badly. She didn't break it, luckily. But she was talking about how it made her so much more conscious of what was happening on the wall, and just taking inventory of where her feet were and making sure she wasn't going to fall and sprain her ankle again. Yep.
I get the one comment I get a lot of times is sometimes on my videos, especially the ones that I'm shooting where I'm not sending, people will say, you didn't try to go to the next hold. And because I broke my ankle, I'm always making these calculated judgments in my head. Is it worth going for that next hold? Do I have enough to go for it in a way that I feel comfortable falling after that? And if not, I'm just going to drop off the wall. I mean, it's not worth it to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to weigh that every single time. Am I ready to fall?
Sure. Yep.
Because people fall. I mean, it happens, right?
But before I broke my ankle, I wouldn't have thought twice about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how something like that can change your entire climbing process.
For sure.
And how you feel on the wall. So, keeping on pace with your climbing goals for 2019. First of all, I think that's an awesome thing that you did, and very healthy to, rather than just a generic, I don't want to say generic, that's maybe a little offensive, but a more general, like, New Year's resolution to narrow it down to climbing. This is what I want to do this year in rock climbing. You mentioned keeping a climbing journal. Talk to me a little bit about what that is, and how that's going for you.
So my idea was just to kind of like what you see Alex Honnold doing in his journal, like what I do. I probably wouldn't write beta in there, but and that was my plan. And we're almost halfway through the year, and I still haven't gotten it. And the problem is I'm 43 years old. My memory, I don't want to say that I'm getting old, but my memory's not that great. And so even by the time I get home from the gym, I kind of wipe from my memory a little bit what I did when I was there.
Okay, yeah,
and
that
so
makes sense.
The other option is to to carry a book around and a pen around with me while I'm climbing, which it's a possibility. But again, like I mentioned before, the gym's busy. You don't want to have a lot of stuff laying on the mat. Or take the time afterwards to do it, which would be a good discipline. But I also climb after work, so a lot of times when I'm leaving, it's 8:30. I haven't eaten dinner yet, so I just want to get out of there.
Yeah. So what is it that kind of pushed you into that idea in the first place, having a climbing journal?
Much like kind of like shooting videos. Like I think the only way you can tell what your progression is if you're tracking what you're sending and how much of it. If you look back on something, you go, okay, well, I was sending, V4s 2 weeks ago, and then you realize if you had a journal, you went like, no, I wasn't. That was, that was a week ago or whatever. Whatever amount of time would make it shocking to you. But yeah, I think it's just keeping track of it, so you can measure your progress.
Yeah, and that's good to track. And you have, the blessing of a kind of a digital journal, right, of your progress, and filming yourself climbing, and I found myself doing it much more frequently because it's really cool to just be scrolling down my Instagram feed, a couple weeks later, and just, I remember that climb. That climb was cool. I remember every move on that climb now that I'm watching it again. I maybe haven't thought about it since then, but maybe if I went and did that climb now, it'd feel a little easier than it felt then. You never know.
Yeah.
And so, I agree with that. Absolutely. That's really cool. And
I've even, it's sad to admit, I've even looked at a video at the gym so I can remember my own beta.
Hey, if you want something done right. Right.
Yeah, just look how I did it before. Apparently it worked for me.
That's funny. Yeah. That's a cool part of like documenting your climbing though, is being able to look back and watch yourself do it.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I'm one of those people, I would say that I'm not athletic, but that's not 100% true. I am not very spatially aware or body aware. So I don't realize that I'm doing things, or someone will say, hey, shift your body weight to the left. And I'm like, I am shifting my body weight to the left. And they're like, no, you're standing straight up and down. For whatever reason, I'm just not good at knowing where I am in space. So shooting video really helps me there. Okay, did I really get down? Did I really lean that direction? Did I not? Oh, okay, I didn't. And my big thing, and I really need to work on, and people always comment, is I do a lot of regripping. Every time I see it, I'm like, ugh. Or I'm really picky about my footwork. Even the stuff that people say looks like good footwork bugs me.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
But see, I think a good thing to do, especially if you're a new climber, is to find people that you like the way that they climb, and watch what they're doing and why do you like it. What is it that you like about it? And I like the people that look like they're flying up the wall or doing ballet up the wall, and that's my goal, is to look like that. I know people. I climb with friends that all they care about is descend, and part of me cares about how it looks while I'm doing it. I don't, it's weird, but
yeah, I couldn't agree more. Something that we've talked about frequently among my group of friends, and something that I was quoted with in the very first podcast episode, and that I always tell people who are starting off climbing. If any part of you is unaccounted for, it'll be yanking you off the wall. And it's just the nature of the sport. And it's really difficult to always be paying, because you're focused. When you're climbing, 100% of your mental capacity is usually on the next hold, right? And how you're going to get there. So it's difficult to take inventory for a moment of where your body is and what it's doing before focusing on the next move. That's really tricky. I mean, and I agree. You put a camera on you, and it makes you a lot more conscious of what's happening. And that's healthy.
I don't know how it is for other people, but I know, like I said, when I look at it, I go, okay, I didn't think that I was doing that, or I didn't know that I was doing that.
Yeah, like I said, with auditing, you can audit yourself, on the wall. And that's a really cool, again, really cool part of watching yourself climb, is you don't get to watch yourself climb, unless you have someone, or you video it yourself and you go back and watch it. And it's oftentimes, for me, it's very transformative watching myself climb, because looks nothing like I thought it did.
Yeah.
I always have an image in my head of how it looked, and then I get off the wall and I watch the video and I'm like, wow, that looked nothing like I thought it was going to look.
Yeah. The fun thing too is, I don't know if you've ever done this when you're projecting a problem. Just shoot video at, every session, and you can go back and you can see the progression. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a cool one. But yeah, and it's nice to have that kind of like I said, like a digital journal, to go back and watch yourself. And in your case, you have a small army of people who are very supportive of you and are really on the journey with you. I mean, they're starting where you started, and they're coming with you all the way to your goal, the apex of what you want to get to, and talk about that a little bit with me. The climbing V5 outdoors by the time you're 45. What gave birth to that idea? Or was that just kind of a sequence of numbers that made sense to you?
So I had been climbing for a while, and I never really, like, climbers are so casual and so chill that I never really thought about climbing as being something where you put a goal. Like, what, it almost seemed anti-climbing to have a goal, if that makes sense. And then there's a guy locally, his name is Phil. He's super awesome. He's one of those guys that takes newbies outside. Love him. If you want to follow him, he's at Forever V3 on Instagram. Super cool guy. He's taken me out to several local crags and showing me around, so it's cool. He said, I don't know what we were talking about, but he said to me one day, he's like, "You should have a goal." I'm like, I should have a goal. I was spending 6-8 hours a week in the gym. It was kind of like having a part-time job.
Yeah.
But what was I doing with that time? And then you get frustrated when you don't get better, and you're like, well, I'm just coming here and climbing. I'm not trying to, sometimes I'm trying to get better, but something, it's just, oh, what's new? Like you said, what's new? It's a new set. What can I climb? And so I started thinking about it, and then part of it was, obviously V5 by 45, the fives go together. I'm not above that.
The aesthetic.
Yeah. That's kind of where it started. But I was looking online, and there's a website called I think it's called 99 Boulders, 99 Problems. I don't know. 99 Problems would be more of a Jay-Z ripoff. But yeah. I think it's called 99 Boulders. And they had like a chart, and it showed like the V scale, and like I think beginner went up to V5 and V5, and then V6 was beginner, moderate. And I was like, I'd like to get on that cusp. Granted, that's someone's interpretation of skill level, and then the other thing was, I thought, well, you can go to any bouldering spot, and there's probably going to be a V5. There may not be a V0, there may not be a V1, but there's going to be a V5.
That's
or
true.
V4.
Yeah, and there's usually in those little like local crags, you'll find like a 3 or 4 star V4, V5, like a really good classic problem.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, the classics tend to start in the V4, V5 range. And then I also looked at the fact, hey, I'm 43 years old. My ability to recover, my ability to train hard, my ability to climb hard is going against me. And what grade could I climb that I would feel like, okay, for lack of a better way to put it, I was a real climber. You know what I mean? In my mind, anyway. Not that anybody would judge me that way. And V5 happened to kind of hit that mark. And so I was like, and then the other thing was, I had no idea. Last year I ran a half marathon. I used to be a runner when I was in high school. You can go online and you can go out and run a mile and time yourself, and go online and get a program that says, okay, if this is what you ran a mile in now, here's a plan for the next 18 weeks of your life, and you can run a half marathon. There's no, hey, you're 43 and overweight and you've been climbing for 2 years. Here's how you climb a V5 in the next 2 years. So I asked online. At the time, I probably had like 400 people following me on Instagram. But there was a few people on there who I really respected, Phil being one of them. And they responded that they thought it was possible. I was like, okay, well, this is doable. I'm going to take their word for it. And I'm going to put it out there. Honestly, I didn't know that I was going to have such a huge audience. But that's how I came up with it. And it's been it's kind of interesting to hold yourself that, because then you're like, well, what if I don't make V5? Is the world going to be upset with me? Am I going to be upset with me? But then I was like, honestly, if I climb I've only climbed V0 outside, so if I climb V1, I'd be super stoked. But you know, part of it you have to let yourself be okay with. Okay, if I get to V3 or V4, that's great.
Right.
But you also have to leave that drive in your mind. You can't let yourself off the hook by saying, okay, 3 or 4 is okay. You still got to leave that drive in your mind that V5 is the goal. But somewhere in there, you have to leave room for you're not tearing yourself down for making these other grades.
Yeah. It's got to maintain a positive thing instead of a negative influence on your climbing.
Yep.
You know, if it ever at any point becomes like something that freaks you out or scares you, you know, that's maybe not for the best. But I will say, you know, you're kind of right about that. You know, you make a goal and then you don't exactly expect, you know, thousands of people to jump on board with you and be like, yeah, dude, you're doing that. By the time you're 45, you're climbing V5. We're here to watch you. And is that ever intimidating or kind of maybe daunting for you to think about?
It is. It is, yeah. But at the end of the day, I climb for me. I'm excited and I'm happy that everybody's coming along with me, and I'm glad that I can inspire people, and that's awesome. But it still has to be for me, and that's what's the most important thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's at the end of the day, it's just a grade, right? We go out to climb for fun. I put a grade on it because grades are the easiest way to measure your progress. Even though grades are so broken.
Yeah, it's totally subjective. We even use the word arbitrary in our podcast.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, gym grades especially are all over the place.
They are.
Right? So it's like, if someone comments a grade on my posts, I'm just like, where? Okay, you say that what at my gym is a V2. You say that's a V0. Where? Because I've climbed V0 outside, and that V2 at my gym isn't as hard as a V0 outside.
Oh yeah, absolutely agree. What is the baseline?
So is it a V0 at your gym? Great, I don't care. But yeah, so yeah, it is daunting, and I will say that having the Instagram account, I said it before, and I don't mean it in a negative way. It makes climbing a little bit more. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before about, you know, you do have to ask yourself sometimes, why am I doing this? Is it for me or is it for the world? You know, Friday mornings at 6 o'clock, although I'm not going tomorrow because I'm going to go outdoor climbing. I get up, I go and I shoot videos. And that's what I do. And that part is definitely for the internet. Mm-hmm. And for me to look at and to review. But a lot of times I'm like, okay, I've done these 5 problems, and I definitely know that I want to get those on video so that everybody can see them. And that's just me wanting to share or to create and to, you know.
Yeah, like you said, give people a little slice of your life, a little piece of your climbing routine. Share it with them. That's a beautiful thing, because a climbing routine and like a climb that you like is such a personal thing.
Yep.
And being able to share that with you know, an audience of people who are right there with you and who know your style, you know what I mean, and who know the grade at which you climb, you know, sort of the roundabout difficulty in which you climb, and they can watch you, you know, push that ceiling higher and higher. And I can tell you 100% certainty, if you do not climb V5 by the time you're 45, I don't think anyone's going to beef you for it. I mean, you'll get the trolls and, you know, the internet haters, but I think the climbing community will applaud you for getting wherever you are. It's just progression in general in climbing super hard. It's like the Richter scale. Grades go up exponentially. It's difficult to progress from, you know, a lot of people plateau really low. You know, my first plateau was from V2 to V3. It took me like a year to climb V3 from V2, you know, and it's a big jump.
Yep. And you know, like I said, I haven't up until this point spent a lot of time climbing outside, a moderate amount, enough to know that what I'm getting into. Yeah. But I was gonna say one of the things I said I like to share a slice of my life as a climber, and one of the things I've been really trying is to show everything. Yeah. Like, I don't feel like climbing today, but I'm gonna try, or I'm not psyched, but let's go for it, or, you know, whatever's going through my mind. You know, there are times where I'm like, why am I even doing this? I mean, does it matter? You know, I mean, I think to me, like when I was talking about doing the half marathon, the hardest part wasn't going out and doing the work. And the hardest part for me is not going out and doing the climbing. It's the mental aspect of it. It's the drive to the climbing gym every other day in traffic where I'm like, I just physically don't want to drive there. I want to climb, but I don't want to drive there.
Yeah.
It's the fact that when I get home, I eat dinner, I take a shower, I watch a couple of YouTube videos, I go to sleep. I mean, people say, "Well, the climbing is your life," and I get that. But when you're training climbing, it's not really it's not that hang out with your buddies session. It's I got to do these 10 workouts, and I need to get out of here, and I need to go stretch, and I need to foam roll or whatever my 43-year-old body needs for me to be able to do this in 2 more days. So,
yeah,
yeah, and there's a lot of recovery stuff that I don't do as much as I should, but I try.
Yeah, it's that motivation aspect and that keeping your psyche up is really difficult. I find especially, you get people who climbing is literally their life, professional climbers.
Sure.
And, they have to train or they'll fall behind in their craft.
Mm-hmm.
That's to me sounds like kind of an easy way to maintain motivation. I'm not saying what they do is easy, but like for me, if I had to, and it was just like, this is what I do, I think it would be a lot easier for me than when I don't have to. When I'm like, I could just sit at home. Ooh, look at that. Magnus put out a new video. I could just watch that instead.
Yep.
I could be psyched for him climbing instead of psyched for me. It's the same thing, right? We're all friends here. And it is, you're totally right. It is difficult to get ready, get your stuff, get in the car and drive there, and for me, at least, I don't know how it is for you. For me, I find on those days when I'm like unsure about it, by the time I get to the gym, I'm teetering on the brink of like, do I even want to climb? Maybe I'll just hang out at the gym and talk to some people. But usually once I get into the gym and into the atmosphere and into the thick of it, then I'm like, you know what? I remember why I do this now. I remember why I'm here.
Yep. So someone just asked me, how do I stay motivated? And I don't know if this is the exact right answer to what they were asking, but I made a deal with myself. And that is, if I'm not into it, whether it's climbing or going to a normal gym to do strength or cardio, I go and I give myself 20 to 30 minutes. And if I'm not psyched and I still want to go home, then go home. You're off the hook.
That's really good.
Don't feel bad about it. You went, you tried. And honestly, I would say that I think out of every time that I've ever felt like that, which is probably 3 or 4 dozen, I've left like twice.
Right.
And it's like you said, you get in it, you get psyched, you start climbing with your buddies, or you see the new set, and some of my best sessions have been those days.
Yeah, when you fight through it, really earn the session.
And the worst sessions are usually the days when I need them to be the best.
Isn't that rough? Isn't that, you get to the gym, you're like, I'm feeling unstoppable. I'm like Superman today. And then you touch the first hold and you're like, oh, I'm so weak.
I don't know if everybody has this feeling, but a lot of times when I get to the gym, I'm like, do I remember how to do this? Like, it's so weird. I don't know why. I mean, and it's not like I climb like every other day, so it's not like I take a lot of time off. But I'm just always unsure of whether or not I can do it or not. I don't know why. It's weird.
I totally get you. I mean, if you're not like literally on the wall, or if your body's not warmed up, it kind of still feels foreign, because I have this theory that rock climbing, what we do to our bodies on the wall, is either the most natural thing in the world or the least natural thing in the world, and I'm not sure which.
Yeah.
It's either like what our bodies are built for or the exact opposite, and I'm really not sure. But I think that's kind of like part of it, is your body's like, for a second, it's like, whoa, relax, take it easy, buddy. I don't know what you're doing, putting all your weight on your fingers and stuff like that, but you really got to keep both feet underneath you and stand underneath you. And what's funny is I found I have lost my technique to climb down a ladder. When I'm climbing down a ladder now, I'm backstepping left and right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I can't just go straight down a ladder anymore. Thanks, rock climbing.
Yeah. It'd take me 20 seconds to climb up a problem. It'll take me 40 seconds to climb down. I am so paranoid about down climbing. Because I don't know about you, but when I get to the top, I'm so done. and then you got to get down, but your brain is either in that euphoria state or it's just okay, we're done. We need to be on the mat. And obviously, with my ankle, dropping is not really. I try to do as little of that as possible.
Right.
So I was worried. Even just climbing, like I don't know if your gym has down climb. We have down climb handles, and those seem worse than climbing holds to me for some reason.
I think it has to do with the size of your hands, because I totally know what you mean, and I think people with smaller hands really can really use those down climb jugs. Mm-hmm. But then folks with bigger hands maybe can really just can't get as much on there, so it kind of gets a little sketchy. But
they also have really a lot of texture in them. And
yeah,
it's really hard on the skin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
especially if you're doing perfect repeaters.
Oh yeah, that's when it gets real bad. Especially you're doing traversing or 4x4s, anything like that. You'll rip your skin clean off.
Yep.
Okay, so we're getting close to the end here. I just got a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap things up. What are your plans as far as content creation? I mean, are we pushing the content creation further than we are right now? Are we going to keep it on, kind of a flat plane because you're doing well, obviously, and you're still growing? Are you moving, any plans to move to YouTube or to start, broadcasting elsewhere? Anything like that in the works?
So people have suggested that watching me vlog would be interesting. I'm not sure that that's true. But I've thought about it, and it would be cool to vlog. There's a couple problems. One, I think walking around holding a camera in front of me would be weird.
Yeah.
And then, as I mentioned several times, the gyms are busy. Unless I have someone to hold a camera for me,
right,
and it's not 6 o'clock in the morning, then putting my little GoPro out there it's going to get crushed. It's going to not crushed, but it's going to get knocked over. So I think creating interesting content that way would be weird. I've tried in the past. So if you look back at my first post, they were all images. I liked images better because I could control them, what angle they were from. I could shoot at one angle, and then I could do the whole climb over again at a different angle, and I could jumble together 10 pictures that showed the whole thing.
Right.
And then I asked people, and they said they liked videos better. So I'm like, all right. And I as I mentioned before, I used to do the scooter vlogging, so I have 3 or 4 GoPros, and so I thought, well, I'll take 2 of them to the gym, and since it's 6 o'clock in the morning, there's only 10 people there, I'll put 2 at 2 different angles, and I'll edit them together. And honestly, even to me, it didn't look like a better product. I mean, there are a few problems where I think it would be great, especially if you're kind of going around a corner, or if it's one of those problems. But like you said, it kind of works, and I'd like to do more outdoor content. I think people would really enjoy that. I would enjoy getting outside more. But it kind of going back to the theme that we've been talking about for a while is I generate content partially for me and partially what people are interested in, which is why I kind of made a joke today about the fact, or the other day in one of my stories, is that, well, I don't know what the video is for tomorrow because I schedule all my videos out using a different app, and but it's going to be a Thursday, so I'm going to be falling off of something, and that's just the formula that I have that I'm using right now.
Yeah.
Mondays, Wednesdays, cool sends that I'm super psyched about. Tuesdays, Thursdays, stuff I'm working on that I fell off of. Fridays, something good, but Fridays are a little weak as far as people seeing things, as far as views go. I almost feel like a jerk for knowing the analytics on these things.
Oh no,
that's just the way my brain works. I'm a programmer, so if you're like you said, one of my videos may have 30,000 views. I know one of my videos, the one from Waco, has 80,000 views. Why does that one have 80,000 views? But there's another one, a not super interesting problem, also has 80,000 views. I don't know why that one did it get reposted. Did it get people just saw it more?
Yeah,
that it came up in their hashtags more. I don't know. And
some kind of weird algorithm. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't think Instagram is ever going to tell us, so that's fine.
No.
So I mean that's kind of I've just been trying to refine. I think I have the process down.
Mm-hmm.
I have my own process. I shoot the videos on my GoPro. I download them to my phone. I use an app called Filmora Go to edit them really quickly, and I can do it anywhere, because it's all on my phone. If I'm, at lunch at work, I can be editing videos. A lot of times, I'll shoot the videos at 6 o'clock in the morning. By the time I get home from work, or by the time we're done with lunch at work, I have them edited and ready to go. And then, I have this formula that I just said about, what videos go on what day. And then really the hardest part is writing the descriptions that I'm not even sure that anybody reads. So
that's the tricky one. Yeah. You can count views, but you can't count how many words people read.
Yeah. And I try to make them kind of timeless. Mm-hmm. Whereas there's sometimes where I want to be like, oh, hey, it's Wednesday. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, more casual.
I save that stuff for my stories, and then I just try to be like, okay, here's this problem. And I try to, as best I can, give the story of the problem when I remember it.
Yeah.
And like I know people have said to me before, hey, can you tell me what the crux for this problem was for you? And if I remember, I'll do that. I kind of talk about whatever the thing is. There was a problem that, some of my buddies were helping me, work through, and I mentioned that, and that someone suggested do this, and it worked, and yeah.
And more memorable that way, we work through something together, yeah.
Yeah, and it shows people that, hey, I'm not just out there doing it myself, and please, everybody know that I don't climb every day.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people worried about my tendons, and don't worry, I'm not climbing every day.
That's good to know. Good for people. We're all, we all worry about your health and safety. And frankly, I mean, I couldn't climb every day. I know people do, but yeah. I climbed yesterday and the day before, and I feel like I got hit by a train last night in my sleep. So
for sure, yeah.
Yeah, not me, man, but yeah, and that's a good point. As far as the audience retention and if I were you, I would not feel bad about knowing the numbers. I think it's important to know the space, and I use the space as the all-encompassing, the climbing space. This is a beautiful, abounding time for rock climbing media, and you found a niche, you know what I mean? So to really dig in there in any way you can and capitalize on that, because people love you, and truly you've got the support of a community behind you, and you've been inspiring many people. And I can tell you, speaking for the climbing community, we appreciate and support you in what you're doing. Thank you. And your constant, consistency. There's really something to be said about the consistency. You know what I mean? And I saw that was part of your climbing goals as well, was trying to put out a video, every day. And that's awesome, man. That's really cool. And
and sometimes people ask me, how'd your following grow? And I really don't know. Just besides putting content on a regular basis, I do know that there's an account that reposted some of my stuff, and it's an account that has like 20,000 followers, and I got a bunch of people. And to be fair, I feel like once your account gets to a certain size, it kind of self-perpetuates it. I don't know how people sharing your stuff. I don't know. For as much statistics as I know how many people view it and when, I don't know how they don't really tell you about that stuff.
Right.
And I guess the only reason I say that I feel bad about it is I feel like, to me, anything, and I don't know why, this is just some stupid thing I have, anything that makes climbing look like a business makes me feel bad about it. Does that make sense? Or it makes me feel dirty about it. I don't,
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I think the majority of the climbing community doesn't see it that way.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, and that's the ethic or the consensus that you get back when you're in the climbing community, is that that's not cool. Which is weird, because every time I ever talk about sponsorship with anybody that follows me, everybody's like super psyched. Go look for sponsors, go look for whatever, and that they're super psyched about that. So I guess it's just a me thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and climbing in the last few years has changed from a lifestyle to a sport.
Sure.
And, now it's going from, a sport, like you said, to a business almost in some ways. And can be good, can be bad. It depends on if you're trying to step into the business space of climbing. Because for a lot of people, that's a lifelong dream, is to step into the business side of rock climbing. You know what I mean? So if that's where you're going, that's cool. But I agree with you. If if you are climbing to climb, like you said, for yourself, then, maybe leaning a little bit in the other direction is a positive thing.
Yeah, and I think if anybody out there is looking at it saying, "Hey, I want to get into the business side of it," I think I'm not particularly looking to get into the business side of it. I just I'm just saying when I take a look at things from more of like a content creator, how to optimize for a community, for an audience, it feels more like a business at that point.
Right.
But I would say that if you're going to get into the business, you want to get into a climbing business, just be careful. Like you said, there's a very delicate balance there, right? Everybody may not be receptive. People might be super psyched, depending on what you're doing. And the community, as we've talked about several times in this podcast, the community's changing. And I think the attitude of the community is changing.
Yeah.
And I think most of it is for the good. And there's a few things that worry me, but I think that the climbing community will correct itself, and it'll all work out.
Yeah, it's a very robust community and very stout. So whatever it is, I'm with you all the way. I think we'll figure it out. I think there's a lot of people that are maybe a little more pessimistic about it. I think pessimism about the climbing community, the direction it's headed in, is like a big part of the reason it's headed in that direction.
Sure.
And you just gotta support it. You just gotta love it. And I can tell that you love it. And you're growing and developing passion for rock climbing, I think is really what draws people to you. I think people can feel, that this, like I said, climbing, whether you found climbing or climbing found you, or, and now it's become such a big part of your life. I think that really resonates with people.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think climbing found me. It's kind of silly to say, but I think I was always a rock climber on the inside. I just hadn't found it yet. Whether or not that's true or not, I don't know, but that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, that's all that counts. I mean, if you feel that way on the wall, then if you're speaking the same language, so if you're speaking the climbing language when you're up there on the wall, then I think that's absolutely true. This way, something you were meant to do.
Yeah, and as one of those people who's kind of I'm like a thought worker, like I'm a programmer. I sit at the desk all day and I try to solve problems. It's kind of an extension, but to solve those problems, I actually have to use my body, which is fun. I actually get to physically try to tackle a problem.
Right.
So, and I think there's more and more people in the world that are like that. More people who aren't working with their hand, or not world, at least in the United States, aren't working with their hands as much. And I think the climbing feeds into that. I want to tactily feel something. I want to solve that problem. I want to use my body. And it's becoming more accessible. It's becoming more, almost as accessible as running. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost as easy now. You're absolutely right. Especially bouldering. You just go in, throw on some shoes, and go.
Yep. I think everybody's big concern is that people aren't going to act right outdoors, and we're seeing some of that now. But like I said, I think a lot of people aren't. There's a good majority of people who climb in gyms have no interest in ever going outside. Yeah,
and those who do, it's up to the rest of the climbers to educate those people properly.
100%. I mean, that's the way the community works. Like I said, my friend Phil, he took us out. He showed us. He said, "Hey, if it rains at this crag on Friday, you can only climb there on Sunday because the rock's going to be wet. It's not going to be worth it." I mean, I don't think we have to worry about rock breaking as much around here. But you really need. That's why I'm so stoked on him. You really need those people. And then I have another set of friends that did the same thing for me as far as sport climbing goes. They took me out to the little crag. They actually bought me a stick clip, which is just super cool. Yeah. And they showed us around. They showed us how to do it safely. I mean, we had already been, gym trained, but they showed us, how to. And then I think the other thing is people just need to learn, especially gym climbers need to learn whatever I don't want to say to not be jerks because that's negative, but
like the etiquette, I guess. Probably.
The etiquette. There you go. There you go. That's the better way. That's the word I was looking for. Because I think a lot of the gym doesn't teach people the etiquette when they rent their shoes, and that's one of the things I try to do at the gym. And sometimes people laugh at me for it, but if someone's having trouble, like somebody in rental shoes especially is having trouble, or like they're about to climb under somebody, I'll go over there and be like, hey man, why don't you step back, or this is how that problem's supposed to be started, or you're supposed to put your two hands here because of where the tape. I mean, every gym is different, but at our gym, the starting handholds and footholds are taped.
Right.
So, and I don't spray beta. I don't want to make it sound like that. I'll ask somebody. If I see somebody who's really struggling on a problem, and they look like they're new, like, hey, do you want some tips on how to start that one? And very rarely do I tell them how to do the entire problem, because like that's half the fun right there.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes, it's all. I also know as a beginner that if you can't get off the ground, it's frustrating. If that first move is killing you, then it's not fun. So
yeah, feels impossible, feels unnatural if you can't even start. So that's healthy. But you can't know the etiquette just by nature of what it is. You got to be taught.
Sure. And I would encourage everybody who's a climber, who's been climbing for years, take those people under your wing. Like people took you under your wing. Like people took me under their wing, and do it.
Yeah.
Teach them what you know about outdoor climbing. Show them the lines. Show them how to find stuff. I mean, because even with a guidebook, the first time I went to Waco, I feel like the first day I was just trying to figure out what there's a picture, but from what side of the boulder is it? You know what I mean? Like,
it's very confusing, even with a guidebook.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's when we were out there, we found somebody and they told us where they were, and we worked our way back. So. Yeah, and I don't want to make it sound like I think I just want people to go away with knowing that I think the climbing community is the most amazing community I've ever been involved with. Super supportive. Everybody's, I would say 99% of people, 99.9% of people have been super supportive of me, and I think the other people, no one's been unsupportive to me to my face, and the people who have been online, and I think that they're just trolls, and online has trolls, so.
Yeah, they exist everywhere. Yeah.
Yep. So,
well, I think we've pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover. Full disclosure, I think it'd be cool to have you back on this podcast. You seem to like to talk climbing, and I'll tell you, man, I love talking climbing with climbers. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's nothing better than that. And
amen.
I want to really, really thank you for coming out here and for agreeing to do this. It was really cool to talk to you, and to meet you and to learn about your story a little bit. And, we, Vertical Thoughts, our little group, our little crew, we're right there behind you. We'll be following you all the way up to that first V5 outdoors.
Awesome.
Before we close up, here's anything that you want to say to your fans, to people out there, Vertical Thoughts listeners, anything you want to add?
I'll just reiterate what I've kind of said this entire podcast, is that I really appreciate everybody coming along on the journey. And I really do think of that way, that we're going along on the journey together. And I'm super psyched, and I'm stoked that everybody who has decided to come along. That's awesome.
Well put. And again, Jeremy, thanks for coming on.
Yep.
I appreciate you being my guest. And to everyone else, thank you for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Episode 7, we're trucking right along here. I will see you guys in episode 8. Thanks for listening.